World events in 1806. USA. In 1806, several key events shaped American history. The cornerstone for America's first cathedral was laid in Baltimore, Maryland, on July 7, 1806. The duel death of Charles Dickinson by Andrew Jackson. In a famous duel on May 30, 1806, Andrew Jackson killed Charles Dickinson. Dickinson, a prominent attorney and marksman, was mortally wounded by Jackson's shot, though Jackson himself was also wounded by Dickinson's first shot. The duel resulted from a disagreement over a forfeit fee from a cancelled horse race, as well as personal insults exchanged between the two men. The commencement of Zebulon Pike's second expedition. The expedition aimed to explore the Louisiana Purchase in the Southwest, including the Arkansas and Red Rivers, and to gain information about Spanish territory. The Non-importation Act was passed. The Non-importation Act was passed by the U.S. Congress on April 18, 1806. This act aimed to prohibit the importation of certain British goods into the United States as a way to exert economic pressure on Great Britain. The goal was to compel Britain to respect American sovereignty and neutrality, as well as to stop the impressment of American sailors. Britain. Abolition of slave trade. Parliament passed an act to prohibit the British from supplying slaves to foreign and conquered colonies, a step towards the eventual abolition of the British slave trade in 1807. General election. A general election took place, resulting in the continuation of Lord Grenville as Prime Minister. Death of William Pitt the Younger. The Prime Minister, William Pitt the Younger, died, leading to a new political landscape. Continental System. Napoleon Bonaparte's Berlin Decree implemented the Continental System, aiming to block the import of British goods into the rest of Europe. France. In 1806, France experienced significant military and political events. Dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire. On August 6, Napoleon dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, a powerful political entity that had existed for over a millennium. This event was driven by Napoleon's growing influence in Europe and his desire to establish French hegemony. War of the Fourth Coalition. In October, Prussia declared war on France, leading to the War of the Fourth Coalition. This coalition, including Russia, Saxony, and Great Britain, was formed to oppose Napoleon's growing power. The war saw major French victories at Jena and Saalfeld. Berlin Decree. On November 21, Napoleon issued the Berlin Decree, which forbade the import of British goods into European countries allied with or dependent on France. This decree was part of Napoleon's broader economic blockade against Great Britain. The marriage of Stéphanie de Beauharnais, adopted daughter of Napoleon Bonaparte, to Prince Karl Ludwig Friedrich of Baden happened on April 8, 1806. The Siege of Gaeta, where French forces besieged Neapolitan forces, began on February 26 and ended on July 18. Key events in 1806 in Spain. War of the Fourth Coalition. Spain was involved in this conflict, which pitted France against a coalition of European powers. Battle of Jena. Napoleon's victory at Jena in October 1806 significantly impacted the political landscape, influencing Spain's position. Proclamation by Godoy. Prime Minister Manuel de Godoy issued a proclamation that was interpreted by some as a potential challenge to France, despite Spain being its ally. Austria. Treaty of Pressburg. In 1806, Austria signed the Treaty of Pressburg with France, formally ending the War of the Third Coalition. This treaty significantly altered the balance of power in Europe, further contributing to the political climate leading to the Peninsular War. Italy. Napoleon's military campaigns and political reforms profoundly impacted Italy. He established client states under French influence and imposed French administrative structures. Following the Treaty of Pressburg and Napoleon's victory at the Battle of Austerlitz, the Holy Roman Empire was dissolved. On March 30th, 1806, Napoleon's brother Joseph was appointed King of Naples, replacing the Bourbon king. This marked a shift in power in the Italian peninsula. War of the Third Coalition. Italy was a theater of conflict during the War of the Third Coalition. The British landed a force in the Kingdom of Naples and were victorious at the Battle of Maida against French troops in July 1806. Turkey. In 1806, Sultan Selim III, encouraged by the Russian defeat at Austerlitz and advised by the French Empire, deposed the pro-Russian Constantine Ypsilantis as Hospodar of the Principality of Wallachia and Alexander Mourousis as Hospodar of Moldavia, both Ottoman vassal states. Russo-Turkish War. The war was sparked by the Ottomans, influenced by Napoleonic France, declaring war on Russia. Iran. The Qajar dynasty, ruled by Fath Shah, sought an alliance with Napoleon, who proposed a military mission to train the Iranian army against Russia and Britain. However, this alliance was short-lived as France soon signed a peace treaty with Russia. The British, alarmed by the Franco-Iranian alliance, sent John Malcolm on a mission to Tehran, but he was not permitted to meet with the Shah. India. In 1806, a significant event in Indian history was the Vellore Mutiny. This major revolt by Indian sepoys against the East India Company in Vellore, Tamil Nadu, took place on July 10th and lasted for 1 day. Other key events in 1806 include the ascension of Mughal Emperor Akbar Shah II to the throne of Delhi on November 19th. China. The Qianlong Emperor actively promoted Buddhism, particularly the Yellow Church, Gelug sect, as a way to maintain peace and harmony with Mongol populations. He also showed interest in Tibetan Buddhism, studying related texts and incorporating Tibetan Buddhist imagery into his tomb. Cultural activities such as literature, art, and music continued to flourish during this period. Japan. The Bunko Order. This decree, issued by the Edo shogunate, represented a cautious attempt to manage the increasing presence of foreign ships in Japanese waters. By providing access to firewood and water, the order aimed to prevent potential conflicts with foreign vessels. Russian envoy Rezanov. Rezanov's visit to Nagasaki in 1806 aimed to negotiate trade agreements with Japan. However, his efforts were unsuccessful as Japan continued its policy of isolation. Australia. In 1806, William Bligh, the former captain of the HMS Bounty, arrived in Sydney as the new governor of New South Wales. He replaced Philip King, and his arrival marked a period of growing tensions and conflict, particularly with the New South Wales Corps and individuals like John MacArthur. Canada. Le Canadian newspaper founded. This Quebecois nationalist newspaper marked a step in the development of French-Canadian identity. Population growth and the Canadian mosaic. The British North American colonies, particularly Upper Canada, saw increasing British immigration, which began shaping a predominantly British population. Slavery in Canada. Slavery, though not as well known as in the United States, continued to exist in Canada at this time, with advertisements for the sale of enslaved people appearing in places like York, now Toronto. Colombia. Francisco de Miranda's attempt, 1806. Francisco de Miranda, a prominent figure in the South American independence movement, attempted to land in Venezuela with a force of mercenaries, including some recruited in New York City. This effort was ultimately unsuccessful, and Miranda's actions further fueled the growing unrest against Spanish colonial rule. Brazil. British invasions of the River Plate, 1806 to 1807. A British detachment occupied Buenos Aires for 46 days in 1806 and later unsuccessfully attempted to occupy Montevideo and Buenos Aires again in 1807. Argentina. British invasion. A British fleet under General William Carr Beresford landed in Buenos Aires, intending to seize control of the city and the Rio de la Plata region. Local resistance. The city's Spanish viceroy, Rafael de Sobremont, fled, and local Creole militia, led by Santiago de Liniers, organized a defense. defeat of the British. Linier's forces successfully repelled the British, culminating in the reconquest of Buenos Aires. Norway. Naval power struggle. Denmark-Norway, allied with Napoleon, faced challenges in defending its maritime interests against the British Navy. The British Navy, through blockades and naval actions, significantly disrupted Denmark's shipping routes and trade. Sweden. Franco-Swedish War. The Swedes suffered a defeat at Lubeck on November 6th, a significant setback in the ongoing conflict with France. Construction of the Södertälje Canal. The construction of the Södertälje Canal started in 1806, and it was completed in 1819. The canal was designed by water engineering engineer Erik Nordwall, and it was built to allow boats to pass through Södertälje, which had previously been impassable due to a post-glacial rebound that made the area unusable for navigation. Steam engine introduction. The first steam engine was introduced to Stockholm at the Eldfarn gristmill. Africa. Battle of Blåberg. The British force, under the command of Sir David Baird, landed at Losbergs Bay and marched towards Cape Town, where they engaged the Dutch and Batavian forces in the Battle of Blåberg on January 8, 1806. Ghana. Ashanti-Fanni War, 1806 to 1807. This conflict was a major event in the history of the Gold Coast, now known as Ghana. It was part of a larger series of conflicts between the Ashanti Empire and the Fanti states. Anglo-Ashanti Wars. The Ashanti-Fanti War and the Gie-Fanti War are part of a larger series of conflicts known as the Anglo-Ashanti Wars, which involved the Ashanti Empire and the British. Nigeria. In 1806, the key historical event in Nigeria was the death of explorer Mungo Park. He drowned in the Niger River near Busa after a native attack, ending his explorations and leaving a legacy of Scottish exploration in Africa. Saudi Arabia. In 1806, the first Saudi state, led by the House of Saud and followers of the Wahhabi movement, captured Mecca, marking a significant event in the region's history. Egypt. Muhammad Ali, an Ottoman military leader, began to consolidate his power in Egypt during this time, eventually becoming the ruler of Egypt and establishing a dynasty. We hope you have enjoyed watching the video. Thank you. See you soon.